Welcome everyone. Today we're going to install ComfyUI on a MacBook Pro computer, specifically one running Apple Silicon. So the first thing we'll do is we need to open up a terminal. So I'm going to Spotlight, I type in terminal, and I have the terminal coming up. I'm going to hit Command plus just to make the font a bit bigger so it's easier for you guys to see what I'm typing. And we're going to run a command to download a script which will install the Miniconda environment. So I'm going to explain to you what that is used for while this is installing. So the Miniconda environment allows you to set up ComfyUI with all its prerequisite development libraries, which are written in Python, and it requires different versions of these libraries. And the problem that can often happen is different applications running on your laptop can require different versions of these Python libraries. So you can imagine you can get into compatibility problems as one application loads different versions which now break other applications running. So to kind of create a sandbox that protects your ComfyUI from maintaining its specific libraries that it needs, we're going to set up a Conda environment. And to do that, we're going to install Miniconda 3. So we've installed the script. The script has been deposited in my home folder, and I'm going to go ahead and run that script right now. So it's asking me to confirm. It's showing me the license, which you should take a look at. It's basically all these kind of limitations, their liability, your liabilities, what you can and cannot do. Pretty standard. I'm going to accept the license, and it's asking me to confirm that it's going to install the application Miniconda 3 off my home folder. I'm just going to go with the default location, and it's now going to be downloading the various software and setting that up. So this will take some time. Okay, so it's finished downloading the Miniconda 3 environment, and it's asking if I want to run some commands to kind of initialize my startup scripts. I'm saying yes. Okay, and it's went ahead and made some changes. So it's asking me now to close and reopen my current shell. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Maybe just click up here. Rerun my terminal. Make the font bigger again. So I'm back in my home folder, and I'm going to now use the Conda command that I just installed to create an environment, which is like self-contained environment. And I'm going to call it, for simplicity, my company. Okay, so it's going ahead and installing the software for that. And proceed. Okay, it's created that. So now the next step is I'm going to activate that environment. You can see here, it's showing me that the current environment is the base environment, and I don't want to install ComfyUI in that environment. I want to install it in the My Comfy. So I'm going to have to first activate it, and I'm now in the My Comfy environment listed here. Okay, so we're in the My Comfy environment that we just created, and we need to now start installing some of the prerequisite software that ComfyUI needs. So we're in that environment, and I can tell that by this nice reminder in my prompt showing that I'm in the My Comfy environment, and I'm going to install a bunch of different Python-based libraries that we'll need, which basically runs a lot of the machine learning computation and software that My Comfy uses to create its generative art. And let's see. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter and start the installation process. So it's starting to collect it. It's producing a list of all the software it's going to install. I trust it, and you can see it's starting to download all these different libraries. And what's kind of cool about this process is it knows which some of these libraries also have other libraries that are needed to be installed first, and it kind of works all that information out. Okay, so it's finished installing those libraries. By the way, a couple things about the Conda environment. You can see I'm currently in the My Comfy, and let's say you kind of mess up and you want to just start all over again. you first need to get out of the My Comfy environment. You can do that by typing Conda deactivate, and you can see I'm back to the base environment. And now, if you want, you can actually remove the environment that I just created if I just follow this command. However, I'm not going to do that because I still want to go back. So I'm going to do Conda activate and go back to the My Comfy environment that I just created. Here we go. So I want to kind of first do a couple tests to make sure that after installing all this PyTorch information, we're using the version that actually takes advantage of the Apple Silicon hardware. And to do that, I'm going to run a text editor, so Nano. And this is where I can type a little script program. So I'm going to copy and paste this script into the text editor. Okay, and you can type this out manually if you want, but it was just faster for me to copy paste. And I'm going to hit Control X to exit the text editor. I will want to save it. I'm going to call it check MPS. So it's basically create a little Python program, which saved it on my home folder. So let me just show you. So it's created that program, and now I'm going to run that script using Python. Check mps.python. So it's running the script, checking a bunch of things, and let's see what it outputs out. Now this script, if it works, it'll output this, which basically confirms that the device is an MPS device, which stands for Metal Performance Shaders, which is the technology that Apple uses to accelerate its hardware. Okay, so at this point, we've created a My Comfy environment. We've downloaded some of the initial Python-based libraries which are needed to run ComfyUI, and we confirmed that we're using a version of the Python and PyTorch libraries which take advantage of the Apple Silicon hardware. So the next step is to the fun part, which is downloading the ComfyUI software itself. So I'm in my home folder, and I'm just going to want to use the git command. Now the git command is used to download software from GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and type it in. One kind of interesting fact is ComfyUI was made, I believe, in early 2023. So it's a fairly new piece of software. And the author is anonymous. His name, or his or her name, is Comfy Anonymous. So this command is going to go to that repository and start downloading all the software that makes up ComfyUI, and it's free, which is great. So there's a fair amount of files which it's downloading. So sometimes if you have a bad connection, this kind of thing can happen. What I do is I just try it again. Oh, great. So the second time it worked fine. So at this point, it's installed all the software in a folder called ComfyUI off my home folder. So you can see if I type the pwd command, it kind of lists what my current path is. So you can see it's off my home folder in ComfyUI. And if I type ls, I can kind of see the contents, and you can see that it's installed a whole bunch of different files. So we now have the basic ComfyUI software installed. However, this software also has a set of requirements. So if I use the Nano text editor that we used before, and if I print the contents of that, you can see there's all these different programs that it needs and what versions and so forth. So we're just going to exit. Now it would be really tedious just to install these manually one by one, but thankfully you can use the pip command and basically specify that requirements file so that it will do the installation for you. And because we're running this in the My Comfy environment, all these different libraries are going to be installed just for this environment. So if we exit this environment, the base environment would not have access to all these things that we're installing. So this kind of creates a nice self-contained environment for us. So I start the process. You can see it's collecting the various files. It's maybe uninstalling, in this case, old versions so that it can install the new versions. that are needed. And you kind of just let this process work its way through. Okay, so some files were already installed, so it can skip it. Some were older ones, which is updated, and it looks like it's finished installing all the requirements. So now we're in the position where we can actually run and see what the ComfyUI environment looks like. So to do that, I'm still in the ComfyUI folder, and I can run the command python main.py. So let's just do this as a sanity check. So I run it. It's going to do a bunch of things to identify environment, checking to see if I have enough memory and all the libraries are there. It may give some warnings. So warnings are not that critical. You can safely ignore some of them. It's the errors that you have to be scared about. So after it finishes, you'll see it's giving a command to run, go to your GUI or go to your browser and run this, open up this URL. Now what's happening is when I ran that command, python space main.py, it set up a server which is actually kind of listening for all kinds of requests to do different tasks, such as generative AI production. And the program is actually running ready to go, but we need a user interface, and that user interface is located on the browser. So I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to open up a browser. Let's do Safari. Okay, and I'm just going to paste that URL, and boom, right away you can see it's set up a nice default workflow, which we'll go through, and we're going to try to get this thing to work as the next step. Now if I try to run what it's currently here, you can see I'm getting these errors right away, and the reason why that's happening is the basic software and nodes are installed on this device at this point, but you also need to download the models, which are actually the AI models, and there are many different types of models to kind of create different types of generative art and to do different tasks. So we will need to find those libraries and install them, and to do that, we'll set up a ComfyUI manager, which is another special module which makes this process easier. So let's do that next. So I'm going to go ahead and close my browser. I have this thing running. I'm just going to hit Control-C just to break it out of it, because we're going to do some setup first. Now the first thing to do is I'm in the ComfyUI folder, and I'm going to go to another subfolder called Custom Nodes. So this folder, eventually, as you expand and customize your setup of ComfyUI, you're going to be downloading different nodes from different authors, and they all get deposited in this folder here. And what's nice thing about the ComfyUI manager is it's kind of maintained by that ComfyUI group. So it's going to have a curated set of models and nodes that you can install, and to make it easier. So I'm in the custom nodes folder. I'm now going to use git again to this time download into this custom nodes folder the ComfyUI manager. So I'm typing the command. So this was written by Dr. Data. You see there's a lot of pseudonyms and aliases used here in this. And it's going to go ahead and install the ComfyUI manager software. So you can see it downloading that. Now, just if I list the contents of the custom nodes folder, you can see that it's now created a subfolder that has that software. So let's go back to the main ComfyUI folder. So here, and now I'm going to run python main.py again, which runs the ComfyUI server. So this time when it's running, it's going to find out, hey, there's some new package in the custom nodes folder, and it's going to do the setup for it and install it. And it has done that. Again, it's creating this URL that we should join. So let's go ahead and open up our browser again and paste it. And you can see one subtle change here is we see our graph, but now we have this new button called Manager. And if you click on this, it has a whole bunch of very useful subcommands that you can do, such as doing automatic updates and updating your ComfyUI and restarting your server from the GUI, in which you don't have to go back to this terminal shell and do it manually. Now I know, as you recall last time when we tried to run it, we got this error that it's missing the library. So I'm looking at this library. Let's copy, paste that. So I'm copying that because we're going to have to find it and install that library. So we go to the manager now, and I can now go to this model manager, and it has all these different models that you can install. But let's paste in the one that we're looking for. So it didn't find it. Sometimes it's trying to find the exact path. Sometimes I'm going to make it a bit easier by removing that SDXL, and voila, here we go. We find a match for it. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. And you can see it's going to save it in this STL 1.5 path in the checkpoints folder. So I'll show you where it does it. Now, this process, what's happening is, and if you look at my shell in the background, you can see it's now downloading that model, and it's pretty big. It's 4.27 gigabytes. And you'll find that as these models grow in sophistication, and there are many models, some of these can range from as little as 500 megabytes to as high as several gigabytes. So you want to make sure you have some pretty decent storage on your laptop, especially if you're going to be experimenting and trying to do all kinds of things, because typically you might have different models to kind of generate different aesthetics. Like say you want anime, or you want more of a cyberpunk feel, or you want to create models based on your own artwork. These will, depending on how big your models are, they'll take a fair amount of space. So you want to make sure you're okay on the space department. So it's downloading. Now one trick you can do is, if you don't want to switch back and forth, there's this nice button over here, which kind of like the little split screen on your browser, and you can actually see the installation happening without having to leave your browser window. So we're going to let this thing install. Okay, so we finished installing the library, but we need to restart the browser and the server. So I can hit refresh button. And let me go back. Let me just clear this out. We don't need to look at this anymore. Another way to kind of refresh is to hit R. And let's try it now and see if it finds the script or the model. You can see now we have a green box. And what's happening is, as it's going through each module, it'll highlight the one that it's currently working on in green. And it's created an image. And in my case, in this text prompt, I already had previously typed some information in here about what I wanted to depict. So I had previously experimented, and I had a different text prompt in here, but most likely you're not going to see this ham food dressing your setup. So let me try simulate what you will likely see instead. So I'm going to just close this environment. So if you've set up ComfyUI for the first time, most likely when you start up your prompt, or when you start up ComfyUI, you'll have this default workflow that's set up here. And if I try to run it, you can see that the library or the model that's looking for isn't located there. So we need to install it. So one way is to run the ComfyUI manager. And you could try to install that exact library, but in our case, just I'm going to try find that library that's installed there. So I think it was pruned. So you can see there's a couple potential libraries that we can use, but we need to have SD 1.5. In my case, I had already installed it from previously, which I showed you. So we're going to just use the same library here, version 1.5 pruned. So to do that, because I had already installed my library, I can just kind of hit this button, and you'd see it found the other library that I had there, and I can just hit play. And that's now using that model to generate this particular prompt that comes to the default. And you can see it's created a little bottle there. So there you go. We have, if you can get to this stage, congratulations. You've set up a ComfyUI environment in a separate sandbox environment using Conda, and it's ready in Hardware Accelerate to take advantage of your Apple Silicon on your Mac. So let's get and create some more useful use cases next. Thank you.